What's happening, everybody? This is Syracuse Basketball Postgame, presented by Krause Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for Syracuse Athletics. My name is Brent Axe. It's great to have you on board here following a tight game at the JMA Wireless Dome this afternoon, but Syracuse falls short. Pitt taking down the Orange 77-73 is the final, so Syracuse drops 2 games below 500. They're now 9-11 on the season, 3-6 in ACC play. A trip to the West Coast awaits at Stanford, at Cal. Then you come home for Duke. So quite a stretch upcoming here for the Orange. They kind of let one slip out of their fingers here despite a huge rebounding gap. One player in particular, Eddie Lampkin, just a monster on the boards today. We will get into that and a couple of key things that led to this loss today for Syracuse. Our Syracuse Sports Insider certainly ready to chime in. Certainly we're chiming in throughout the game, and being a Syracuse Sports Insider, you know the drill by now, guys, but doesn't hurt to remind. Means you get direct text message access to me anytime during games or not. Your thoughts, your opinions, your questions, your comments, what you want us to ask Syracuse players and coaches. Just shoot the breeze and talk some Syracuse sports. Big shout out to my guy, Paulie G, who came over and said hello at the Dome today. Syracuse Sports Insider. It's great to meet him, and I believe it was his mom he was with, and great to talk some sports. And he's a Bills fan, of course. We're getting ready for the big AFC Championship game on Sunday. So, hey, if you're ever at the Dome, come say hello, but you can text me anytime. And the way you do that is 315-847-3895. And you can sign up. It's right there on your screen. JoinSubtext.com/Syracuse Sports. It's just $3.99 a month, but you can try it free for 2 weeks. Okay. There's a couple of numbers in this game that don't add up, but it's what happened today. The reason, and you can add up a lot of little things as to why Syracuse lost this game to Pitt. The fact that I'm about to say the reason they lost this game were some key rebounds down the stretch, and you're going to hear Adrian Autry talk about that here shortly. I'm going to play his opening statement coming up. To look at the box score, to be at the game, and to see Syracuse's domination on the boards, okay, 48-31. They out-rebound Pittsburgh. And this is a Syracuse team that has out-rebounded well all season, and has rebounded well, I should say, all season long. In particular, Eddie Lampkin has been great on the boards. Eddie Lampkin had 23 rebounds in this game, one of the great rebounding performances in Syracuse history. Just to put that in perspective, as a team, Pittsburgh had 31 rebounds today. There were times when Pitt was barely edging out Eddie Lampkin on the boards in this game. So you out-rebound Pittsburgh 48-31, but Pitt beat you 38-30 points in the paint. This is a Pitt team that beat Syracuse 45-40 in the second half, scored 45 points in the second half, shot 58% in the second half because they got to the rack. This is a team that was bound and determined to get inside the paint. You could see it from the get-go, and they shoot 58% on the day. And one guy in particular was terrific for Pittsburgh today, Jalen Lowe, who had 22 points on the day. 17 of those points came in the second half. So that doesn't add up. Syracuse just absolutely throttles Pittsburgh on the boards, but Pitt wins out points in the paint. So that's one thing. The second number that doesn't add up is 3 points. Syracuse took a season-high 32 three-point shots. They made 11. You're going to tell me that Syracuse out-rebounded a team by 17. You're going to tell me that Syracuse, who has struggled at the three-point line all year, hit 11 threes. 10 out of 10 times, I'm going to say they won that game. And they almost won that game, right? This was just one of those games. I think Syracuse played better than they have in recent games. I thought the second half ball movement was not quite it was in the first half, but certainly a lot better than the last game that Syracuse played. Their loss to Clemson on Wednesday night. They were moving the ball better. Lampkin was a beast on the boards. There's a couple little things we'll get to that Syracuse certainly could have done better in this game, but this is a game you could have beaten, and this was a punch-up opportunity. Now, Pitt had come in 4 in a row. They lost 4 in a row coming into this game, so they snapped that losing streak, and a couple of those were to good teams. Duke blew them out. They lost to Louisville. Jeff Capel was talking about it after the game, that he wants to get his team back to the team before the losing streak, and they just kind of had these lulls in games kind of like Syracuse does. They have these 2, 3, 4-minute stretches where nothing seems to happen. And Jeff's looking for the team before they went on that losing streak, right? He found it today, and he found it by a team that just figured out what they needed to do in the second half. And that was despite the fact that Lampkin was a beast on the boards. And look, frankly, Eddie grabbed a lot of his own rebounds, a lot of missed shots off the rim where he was the only one there. But 23 rebounds is 23 rebounds. He's the first Syracuse player to have 23 rebounds in a game since Derek Coleman in, I believe, the 1990 Big East tournament. And look, Eddie got called out by Derek Coleman. You'll recall on Twitter. I can't remember exactly sure when it was, but it was pretty early in the season, and Derek Coleman wasn't happy that Eddie got the 44, and Derek Coleman's on there talking about legacy of 44, and clearly not happy that Eddie got the 44. And it was bunk then, and it's bunk now. The way that Derek Coleman was taking shots at Eddie Lampkin. The 44 is nowhere near the legacy in basketball that it does in football. There's some terrific players that have worn the number, notably Derek Coleman and John Wallace. Nobody's denying that. But to just take shots at Eddie Lampkin, when all Eddie Lampkin has done is come in, that is now 5 out of the last 6 games, he's had a double-double, and the one he missed was like by a rebound or two. He has been the most consistent player on this team. He busts his butt in the paint. Eddie's got his flaws. We've talked about Eddie's flaws around the basket. You kind of have to take the good with the bad, but the good shines through. When this guy's grabbing 23 rebounds in a game, matching the greatest rebounder that Syracuse has ever had, be careful what you say about players and questioning who they are and what they do before they have a chance to prove anything, right? And just taking shots at somebody because they dared to take a number that has not had significance with Syracuse basketball really since John Wallace wore it in the mid-1990s. So I haven't seen if Derek's tweeted about it. Derek's certainly going to get word that Eddie Lampkin had 23 rebounds today. But look, Eddie said it himself that it didn't mean anything in a loss. 23 rebounds has to come in a win. 48-31 rebounding gap has to equal a win. 11 3-pointers has to equal a win. Now, I think when you balance some things out, unfortunately, I've been saying this, okay? And I don't want to pick on him, and I want to add to the conversation here instead of just looking at a box score and saying he's got to do more, okay? When you have a power forward who is, this is 6 straight games now that Donnie Freeman's been out. I have said time and again that Jair Davis has to be in the paint. They've got to run plays for him in the paint. They have to stress, get inside. They need him double-double numbers. They need him to be somebody who scores in the paint. Okay, Jair Davis today took 5 shots. 4 out of those 5 were 3-pointers. Now, he hit a 3, but you can't have a player of that physical capability that can get in the paint and can be a bruiser in the paint and, frankly, somebody Syracuse needs in the paint. 4 of his 5 shots being 3-pointers. Can't happen. Davis can hit the 3. Okay, when Davis hit that 3, Mike Waters actually kind of was breaking my chops a little bit. Like, oh, see, that's right in your face, Brent. Jair can hit a 3 or 2 threes a game. But if Jair Davis is taking 5 shots, 4 of those can't be 3s. This has got to be figured out because that's just the extra edge, the extra player that Syracuse needed in the paint. Chris Bell was great today. Great by the fact that he literally didn't take a 3 in the last game. Today, he was aggressive. He went for it. 4 of 9 from 3-point range. Chris Bell gives you 4 threes. You got to take it. He had 12 points. Didn't get a rebound today, which in a game where they had 48 rebounds, which he, by the way, called himself out on after the game. I was talking to him a little bit. He said, that's on me. I've got to be better. But see, when you have a big rebounding gap, it was a few key offensive rebounds that Pittsburgh was able to get down the stretch, and they iced it at the free throw line as well, that cost Syracuse. The officiating wasn't the greatest in this game. I don't think any reasonable person that watched this game says it cost Syracuse the game. I did not like the way it was officiated. Syracuse was 8 of 13 at the free throw line. Pitt was 15 of 21 from the free throw line. I mean, look, this crew missed an out-of-bounds call. They missed a couple of blatant fouls on Pitt. They called a few chippies on Syracuse. I didn't like the way this game was tightly officiated, but I don't want to hear anybody blaming officiating for how Syracuse lost this game. You out-rebound somebody by 17 and you hit 11 threes. You got to win the game, right? But Pitt was able to stay in this game when, for a rare instance here, Syracuse got off to a good start. They led at the first TV timeout. They led at the second TV timeout. This was a team that needed to get off to a better start, and they accomplished that. They did that. And they played, for the most part, pretty well in the first half. Pitt hung in the game at the free throw line. But in the second half, they won because they took over. They attacked the basket. They hit Syracuse where it counted in the paint, and Syracuse was helpless to stop it. Again, partly because Jair Davis, what position do you play? Right? I just don't understand why he is primarily hovering on the perimeter and taking as many threes. So just don't take my word for it. I asked both Adrian Autry and Davis about this. I wanted to give them a chance to kind of say, maybe I'm missing something here. Why is this happening? So I asked Autry about this. Here was his response.
Jair's a guy that I think obviously has the ability to make some shots. He had been shooting, but he shot the ball well from three, and I think teams are kind of letting him shoot. So, I thought he made a couple. I think, the balance for him is to be able to mix it up, with the shot and get down low. I thought today he was pretty much on the perimeter. When he got down there, I think they dug one out. So he didn't have a lot of success, and we need him to be successful down there. They did a good job of making him get off the ball, when we got it in there. But overall, Jair's a guy that can, he can make a couple of threes, and then we need to score inside.
So that's Autry. I asked Jair about the same.
Coach always talks to me about just playing basketball. If I'm open, shoot the ball, and we work on it a lot. A lot of time I spend on it, so I work on it. I'm not going to just not shoot if I'm open. And he's definitely uplifted me and put confidence in me to shoot the ball. So that's what I've been doing as of recently.
I get that. If they're going to leave you open, he can hit it. He's got a nice stroke. There's not somebody out there that shouldn't be taking threes from a mechanical standpoint. But you're telling me your power forward had 5 shot attempts and 4 of them were threes. You can't have it, especially when Pitt was that effective in the paint. Somebody else had to help because, frankly, again, one of the bad things you have to take with the good with Eddie Lampkin is he misses a lot of bunnies. Today, Lampkin was 4 of 9 overall. He had 10 points, okay? But with that many opportunities around the basket, a couple more of those, a little more focus inside offensively, that makes a difference in a game where, the free throw attempts were tilted the other way. Don't blame the refs for this one. I didn't like the way the game was officiated, but I think we all know why Syracuse lost this game, and it was not because of the refs. It's because they couldn't stop Low, and they couldn't stop Pitt from scoring in the second half, a team that shot 58% in the second half and scored 45 points in the second half, right? The Maestro. The best thing you could say about Maestro is he does not waste minutes. This is a guy that played 22 minutes. He had 10 points, 5 rebounds. Now, Peter was trying to make up for what Jair was not doing in the paint. He was 4 of 5 from the field, smart shots. He always busts his butt on defense. Versus 23 rebounds, this looks puny, but Peter had 5 rebounds, and there are some key rebounds that he grabbed. He has become the essential role player for this team. There's a couple guys that have kind of traded off that title. Kyle Cuff didn't have his best day today, certainly only played 8 minutes. He's been the spark off the bench. But Peter has been the guy that it's hard not to compare him to Marek Dolzaj, and you can go through the years of some other guys that have just given Syracuse a lift off the bench, or those guys that go out there and just kind of bust their hump, and they're easy to root for. So Peter did his best to kind of make up for what Jair Davis did not do in the paint, but Syracuse they've really got to look at that. And they've really got to think about that. And Adrian Autry, I don't agree with what he said there. Well, he can shoot the button. Come on. He's in there for Donnie Freeman. And I know they're not the same player. I'm not saying Jair has to be the same player that Donnie is, but he's got to have the same philosophy of score inside the three-point line, right? So just something there that I think was a little frustrating, and Syracuse really has to look at. We mentioned Bell. Look, Chris Bell has been up and down. He'll be the first to tell you he's been up and down. He'll be the first to tell you the teams have been better at stopping him, taking that kind of stop and pop three-pointer. He got it today, though. He moved around more, He kind of did that fake get in the paint shot. He had a key three-pointer down the stretch for Syracuse that ultimately didn't lead to a victory, but he was defended tough, double team, kind of pump fake, got the guy off him, shot a three. Wednesday against Clemson, he didn't even attempt the three-pointer. In this game, I'm encouraged that Chris Bell was 4 of 9, that he took 9 threes. J.J. Starling was 3 of 8, right? Those are the guys. And look, Elijah Moore, you want to see him take maybe a couple more shots than he did. He was 2 of 3 today from the three-point line, 2 of 5 overall, 15 minutes, 6 points. He looked better out there. Moore is making steps. Defensively, he struggles. He's a freshman. I think you got to give him a little slack on that, but he's starting to acclimate, and you hope this would have come a little sooner because we're about to flip the calendar to February. And like I said, you got a road trip coming up to Stanford first, then Cal, then Duke at home. This is a very important stretch for Syracuse because if they don't grab a win or two on the road, it's a tough circumstance. By the way, guys, who's ready for an 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tip for Stanford and a 10 o'clock Eastern Time tip for Cal? Shout out to our West Coast viewers and our West Coast Syracuse Sports Insiders. Mark in San Diego's going to be loving this, and we've got people all over the country that watch this team. So you guys don't mind. You'll be digging that you can watch Syracuse at was a normal time, but Uncle Brent's going to be up pretty late for those two matchups. But West Coast trips are weird. How will Syracuse handle that? And look, you got Duke coming up. Stanford's good. Stanford's probably got one of the best players in the ACC, not named Cooper Flagg, out there. This is going to be a big challenge for them to go out west and grab 2 wins. A lot of coaches have been complaining about it on the ACC media call, and it's just different when you got to make a West Coast swing like that because, I mean, you wouldn't think in the Atlantic Coast Conference how important it would be to pick up 2 wins on the Pacific Coast. But that's college sports, college hoops, if you will, today. They're brand names. They're not regional names. But to go on the road on those weird times on the West Coast, then come back, and look, anybody that's made that west to east flight knows that takes a day or two to recover from. Then, oh yeah, it's Duke coming in on Wednesday. So for a team that is sliding, that's why a win like this is important to put in your back pocket. It would have validated you can punch up. It would have validated that they moved the ball better, that they rebounded well, that, look, they just played as good of a game as they've played in recent memory. But you just lose these games sometimes like this. You can't really, I mean, there's a few things you can certainly point at, but sometimes you just lose a game like this. It's a possession here, it's a possession there. We went over what Pitt did well, what Syracuse did well and didn't do well and needs to improve on, but man, that stings. Especially losing a 4-point game like that at home that you were somewhat, they led at halftime. They got off to a better start, but it was just weird looking at that rebounding gap and seeing Eddie put up this massive number, this monster number on the boards. You're looking at the scoreboard and it's 32-33. They're within 4 or 5 points at all times. Then Pitt gets the edge in the second half and never really gave it up, winning that half 45-40. So an opportunity lost today. It's going to happen. You're going to lose close games. Crowd was into it. You know, I wouldn't call it a great crowd at the Dome today. I'd call it a pretty good crowd. They listed it at just over 20,000. It was certainly not that. Pretty poor effort from the students showing up to this game. Student section was pretty, I think I have a picture of it I can show you as a matter of fact. Shout out to Zach Wolf. He took this photo. Let me pull it up here. Give me 1 second here, guys. Load it up for you so you can see it. But yeah, I mean, the crowd by numbers wasn't exactly what it needed to be, but we're into it when they needed to be. We're loud enough when they needed to be. Appreciated that they were watching a basketball game today, if that makes any sense, right? Yeah, this is what it looked like. Give me a sec here, guys, as this just kind of loads up here. But that's the student section at Tip. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're not, it's just a lot of blue seats and not what you want. And noon starts haven't always been the best effort for Syracuse students, but it be football and basketball. This was actually 12:30. They gave you an extra half hour to get in there and shake off the Friday night partying. But look, the crowd was into it when they needed to be. So I have no fault with them. The numbers were certainly not touching 21,000 as it was officially listed, but they did their job. And Syracuse, for the most part, did their job. But the rebounding gap, 11 threes, like, man, you can't let those things slide. Let's see what our Syracuse Sports Insiders had to say about this one. You guys were active as always during the games. Let's start with my guy Jake, who says, Chris Bell, you take the good, you take the bad, you take them both, and there you have the facts of Q's. Jake, I couldn't love you more for that reference. Shout out to the 80s kids out there that are now know exactly what show that is, what theme song that is. I'm not going to give it away. If you don't know what it is, it's the facts of life, I'll tell you. You take the good, you take the, but that's Chris Bell, right? Chris Bell's going to give me 4 threes. Chris Bell's going to give me something, and he's going to take 9 threes, which, again, I don't think he took a bad shot. Autry was asked about a season-high 32 three-point attempts for Syracuse. He didn't see a bad one. I mean, I'm sure if you go through the film, you might find a few, but they weren't chucking up shots like it was a YMCA league. They were good shots. They were open shots. Bell was open. So I'm going to take that. Coming off a game where he didn't even shoot a 3, right? But it is kind of up and down with Chris Bell. Frankie S. says, Heartbreak Hotel. Very winnable game for Syracuse. Slipped through their fingers. Pitt was able to really impose its will in the second half. It's very apparent now this is going to be a losing season. The question I have is, how many losses will it be? Right. You go to the West Coast, if you slip these 2 against Cal and Stanford, look, weirder things have happened, okay? But I'm going to presume a loss to Duke. So let's say you lose 3 in a row. Now you're 9-14 and 3-9 in the ACC. Just like that, with the calendar flipping to February. It's what grabbing a couple wins on the West Coast, or at least just split that trip and then take a deep breath before you take on Duke at the Dome is pretty important for this team. Seth B says, I felt the offense looked good for most of the game. They moved in, they hit shots, and played with energy. The defense so-so, but played well enough to win. Paul L says, the best Syracuse has looked against a good team this year. However, it's another loss. A waste of a 23 rebound performance by Lampkin. The Orange had one of their better turnover games with 11, but Pitt only had 3 turnovers, and that, again, was the difference. Thank you, Paul, for reminding of that. I did not mention that earlier. That's another big thing. You out-rebounded team by 17. You had 11 threes, but you have 11 turnovers, which, again, for Syracuse, you'll take that, but Pitt only had 3. And Pitt, by the way, the best free throws matter team in the ACC, and they go 15 of 21 at the line. If the best free throw matters team in the league is shooting 71%, again, a lot of things that are tilting towards Syracuse should have kind of escaped with a win today. My guy Randy says a couple points. Syracuse probably shouldn't have had a bigger lead coming out of the, or probably should have, pardon me, had a bigger lead coming out of the first half. That makes a difference. Pittsburgh had some key second chance points. From Al, says better effort, better lineups, better ball movement. Difference is close game turnovers, as we just noted. Syracuse had more defensive lapses than Pitt, but he says at least today we lost on some little things and Syracuse competed. This is from Robbie T, who says we had 6.5 guys out there making contributions without Freeman. I say 6.5 because we still need more from Davis, as I brought up a little earlier, and says, although, oh no, that's from earlier today, or one of the earlier comments, I should say, that got in there twice. Is the comment so nice? We did it twice. So great feedback from our Syracuse Sports Insiders, as always here, and man, that stings. That stings. There's a big difference between a team that's 10-10 and 9-11. With that kind of win against a team that, I don't want to say it felt like an old Big East game, because it didn't, but Syracuse and Pitt can get into some good games. Think of the Tyler Ennis buzzer beater in recent years and some of those moments that Syracuse and Pitt have had through the years. Pitt, a team that plays pressure defense, that shoots well, not only at the free throw line, but it was averaging 80 points a game. Like all the things that would make you think Syracuse can't win this thing, they overcame, not with the exception of turnovers, right? That's going to eat at you, right? And now you take a deep breath, you go to the West Coast, and boy, that's going to be a challenge for Syracuse to come home with 2 wins there, and then Cooper Flagg and Duke, the only Syracuse-Duke matchup of the year at the Dome. which is a Wednesday night. Kind of a different feel on that one. It's not a Saturday game. It's certainly going to be nationally televised, and some of the other elements that are usually there for Syracuse Duke, not to look too ahead here, because Stanford and Cal are not going to be easy for Syracuse. Teams are going out there, and if you got to make that West Coast trip, it's tough. It's different, right? I was talking to Peter in the locker room, and I was just asking generally about making the trip, and like, do you change your sleep patterns? Do you have to do anything differently? Forgetting Peter's never been to the West Coast of the United States, period. So, like, different experience for a guy like that. Just getting to see the other side of the country. Is he, remember, was a late add to the roster and is kind of getting used to life in America and life in college. And now he gets to go see California for the first time. So interesting perspective there, and kind of an interesting note about a team that, Eddie's certainly been out on the West Coast, and that's somebody that can give Syracuse a little insight. And look, they travel a lot, but this is different, man. Football did it a couple times this year. They went to UNLV, they went to Cal, that of course played in the bowl game as well. You have a lot of time to prep ahead of the bowl game and everything. That's kind of a different circumstance, but that West Coast trip, man, it's different. When Cal and Stanford came into the league, and SMU is not a hop, skip, and a jump. There is a direct flight from Syracuse to Dallas, and Syracuse flies charter most of the time anyway, so they get direct flights as it is. But when Cal and Stanford came into the league, I honestly thought about basketball first. The football comes to mind, of course, but it's like, man, what are they going to do for basketball? And the natural thing is what they're doing. You pair them together. You take one trip to the West Coast and you bang them out one right after the other. But I said, that's a long trip. And then when the schedule came out to see Duke as the game after that, hope you guys are drinking your Gatorade and doing all those things that you do with science and sleep and keeping yourself in shape, because that's going to be a little bit of a grind for these guys. Like, oh, come on, they're 21-year-old college athletes. It shouldn't matter. Hey, that's different. They've never done this. The longest trip you make usually is, I don't know, Miami, right? Flying to the other side of the country and back, whole different thing. So there's just another X factor coming into what this team is going to be doing, let alone how they're playing, and just the sting of a loss like this, where you out-rebound a team by 17, you hit 11 threes, the other team only commits 3 turnovers. But look, Syracuse, I shouldn't say only, because 11 turnovers is a lot, but Pitt only got 10 points off turnovers. Go to the Clemson loss Wednesday night when Clemson had 19 points off turnovers. It's not like Pitt really killed Syracuse in converting those points off turnovers, so that's kind of a wash in this one. So that's the story of today, my friends, before Syracuse heads to the West Coast, as we noted. So I'll tell you what, guys, I think it's going to be a business as usual doing the pod, because this is the internet, and a lot of people on the West Coast are going to be up, and it's going to be really, really late for Uncle Brent doing a post-game show, and probably 1:30 Eastern time. But that's what I'm here for. That's what we'll do. We're gonna do the thing as we always do. So our next post-game show will be after Syracuse takes on Stanford, well into the night or very early in the morning, depending on how you look at it. And then they play Cal and then Duke. So the post-game show's lined up. The Syracuse football schedule comes out on Monday. I think we might pop on and react to that. Now, I don't think that'll be till Tuesday, because the ACC selection show for the schedule is Monday night. So I don't know, maybe we'll pop on after that, depending on when they reveal Syracuse's schedule. Hopefully it's out at a reasonable time. So Monday night, maybe Tuesday. I want to react to that schedule because it's unequivocally the hardest football schedule Syracuse has ever had. I just want to see it lined up all the way. So what we know is Tennessee in Atlanta, August 30th, September 6th, UConn at home, September 13th, Colgate at home. They announced on Friday that Syracuse's ACC opener will be at Clemson on September 20th. I'm fairly certain they'll have a bye September 27th, and then they go to SMU October 4th. But we're going to see the whole schedule laid out soup to nuts on Monday in terms of the dates. Not a lot of times yet. So I think we're going to react to that with a little pod action. I know I'm throwing a lot at you, but just kind of telling you what's going on with the pod. We started doing something on Thursday that I hope to continue going forward. That's a live pod on Thursdays. This week, Chris Carlson and I got together and discussed the glory days of Syracuse basketball, perhaps passing them by, and a lot of football issues. We got a bunch of guys at the East-West Shrine Bowl: Kyle McCord, Fidel Diggs, Rondé Gatson, Elijah Clark. I'm missing one in there. Who am I missing in that crew? LaQuinn Allen's going to be at the Senior Bowl, so a lot of NFL buzz with these guys trying to make their way into the National Football League. So there's a lot of, long story short, there's a lot of football stuff to get into, and lacrosse starts next week. So we'll discuss all that on our live pod. We're doing that Thursday afternoons. We did it this week at 3 o'clock. We'll probably do it around that time usually. So kind of put that in your calendar. We'll be doing that. And just a lot to get into this time of the year in addition to basketball. So that's kind of what's upcoming here. Thanks for hanging with us, though, today. I always appreciate your participation from our Syracuse Sports Insiders and those of you that check out the pod. If you can't catch it live, though, make sure you subscribe on Spotify, Apple, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts so you can watch and listen on demand when you want. One more quick piece of business before we exit stage left here. See that flag back there? You know I'm going to pick the Bills. Like, come on. You know I'm going to pick the Buffalo Bills. I cannot be objective in that. But I think tough for two road teams to win. I get it. But I think Super Bowl, where are we at? 59, I believe. Bills, Commanders. I think Jaden Daniels and the Commanders get this done. Kind of two teams of destiny type of feel. Could be wrong. Hope I'm not wrong, certainly, about the AFC side of things, but we got the AFC and NFC championship game tomorrow. That's my official Super Bowl pick. Bills, Commanders. Let's go Buffalo. Got to be two teams to get to the Super Bowl. If you're the Buffalo Bills, we'll see if the Zebras are, how could I put this? Not incompetent. Not favoring one Patrick Mahomes as much as they have been lately. We shall see. So go Bills. It'll be a big Sunday, right? And if they lose, I'm going to be pretty cranky the rest of the week. So just for all of our sakes, go Bills. But it should be a great day of football on Sunday. But a lot to come on the pod, as we mentioned, with all the games happening and the football schedule coming out and lacrosse starting and, of course, the regular schedule of basketball in the next week or so. Thanks for hanging with us today, though. Always appreciate it. This has been Syracuse Basketball Postgame, presented by Krause Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for Syracuse Athletics. We'll talk to you next time, guys. You have a great rest of your weekend. Go Bills.